Hello gorgeous people, I wanted to talk about happiness. I wanted to talk in this video about breaking through the barriers to feeling present and feeling content and feeling happiness in your life. And I say barrier because happiness and peace and contentment is your natural state. It's your natural state. Whenever you're not happy, whenever you're not content, it's because the mirror, the window of your awareness of you as a person, your true nature, is being obscured. It's been obscured by beliefs, it's been obscured by emotional repressions and trapped emotions and that sort of thing. And I've noticed evidence for that in my own life and with my clients countless times. So if you watch this video, hopefully you're going to be able to break through a few barriers, recognize a few limiting patterns in your life so that you can actually exist in the day consistently with this feeling of peace and contentment and happiness at least 80% of the time. So this video comes off the back of one of the greatest and most impactful realizations I've made in my life that I've actually made over the past few months. And this is actually one barrier that stops me and has stopped me and did stop me from feeling genuinely at peace and genuinely happy. And it's the realization that unhappiness can be enticing. Unhappiness, there can be a payoff for it. So right now with you, if you are depressed, if you feel socially anxious or just anxious in general, and you have this persistent pattern of negative emotions, it means that within you, somewhere, somehow, there's a choice being made. It's an unconscious choice, and when I say this to some of my clients and to some other people, whether on Facebook or otherwise, they get quite triggered because people have depression, people have anxiety, the negative feelings that consciously you wouldn't choose. And I come in and I say, listen, a choice is being made somewhere to keep that emotion around, and you need to become conscious of what choice you're actually making. And that's the point here. You make it an unconscious or at least subconscious choice to maintain this emotion and to keep it around. Why would you do this? We don't know. It's up to the individual. I'll give you an example from my own life. I suffered from social anxiety. Now, when I looked within and found the source of the social anxiety and why I was keeping it around and what benefit it brought to me, I saw the truth. I saw that on an unconscious level, which luckily I managed to make conscious, I was choosing the social anxiety because to me it was preferable to the risk of going and approaching people and speaking to them and potentially ridiculing myself and potentially looking ridiculous and that sort of thing. So I boxed myself into a little corner of social anxiety where I said that I was lying to myself. I was using an excuse by saying, I've got social anxiety. I can't go and approach people. I can't develop a better social life because I've got social anxiety. That was an excuse. That was a lie. I was keeping the social anxiety around to avoid going out there and approaching people. And the depression may be something similar. You are depressed. You've been depressed for a very long time. Maybe the case that there's an unconscious choice being made. You're choosing the depression because it's better or preferable to its alternative. Now when it comes to depression, and this is something that worries me quite a bit about the society that we live in and where it's going, is that we're starting to reward depression. We're starting to reward negative emotions. We're starting to give people validation and give people some sort of attention for that. And to a point, it's positive because it means more people talk about their mental health issues, which means they're not going to put them in the shame closet, which means they're not going to repress them, which is very, very healthy, but you can go too far. Whereas if you give people, just pander to people who have depression by saying, your depression's fine, keep it around, here's some attention for that depression, then what you actually do is you shoot them in the foot. You are using compassion unwisely. Because that person's then going to start getting their emotional needs met by being depressed. And they're going to do this largely unconsciously because it's going to become a habit. And that person's going to hang on to the depression, going to hang on to the anxiety, going to hang on to the social anxiety, going to hang on to this feeling of loneliness or this feeling of shame that I'm broken and stuff like that. The person isn't going to let this go. So that emotion is going to perpetuate. It's going to stick around. So, negative emotional states, if they are persistent within you, 9 times out of 10, it means that there is a choice being made on an unconscious level. Now, how do you actually overcome all this? You overcome this by making the unconscious conscious. And this requires a great degree of self-honesty, a great degree of self-awareness, a great degree of self-reflection. And prerequisite to all of those things, it requires that you actually make the choice. Now, people come to me with depression. People come to me and they feel negative. And then I ask them what it is that they want. And they can't tell me. They just have this vague feeling that they're really unhappy. And obviously they don't want to feel happy anymore. They don't want to feel unhappy anymore. But when I start asking them what it is they actually want, they can't tell me. So the willingness to actually get out of this emotional state rather than defend it and keep it around is prerequisite. From there, you can start to ask questions. You can start to become curious about your own emotional states. It is shocking to me sometimes how depression, people who are depressed, sometimes you start poking at their depression, suggesting alternative routes, suggesting that they sleep better, suggesting that they drink water, suggesting that they eat better and start going to the gym and stuff like that, and they will actually attack you because it feels like a threat to them. They start saying, oh, you don't understand depression. It's easy for you to say that, you've got all these things. How can you come at me with this? I have a very serious problem. And it's like, okay, well, what you're actually doing there is you are defending your right to be depressed. And as long as you're doing that, you're never going to overcome it. So the next barrier is repression, suppression, and emotional and stuck emotions. So when you're not feeling happy, it's likely because there's an essence of your experience that you are not allowing yourself to feel fully. So you may over-intellectualize, like I did for so long, over-intellectualize a feeling to try and get rid of it. Or maybe you try and distract yourself. You engage in habits and stuff that you're just distracting yourself. Whether you're watching porn, whether you're wanking too much, whether you're playing too many video games, you're endlessly binge watching YouTube videos. Even if they're self-help YouTube videos, they're still distracting. They're still a distraction from your feelings. Basically, the longer you do not allow yourself to feel, the more you're going to prolong your unhappiness. Because emotions that come up, they're very temporary experiences. Even that felt sense of bliss that can come sometimes, even that's a temporary emotion. Even that needs to be let go of completely. When an emotion comes up, you just let it come up, you let it go. But if you don't pay attention to that emotion, you don't actually give it the space, the breathing room to fully express itself within you, then you repress it, you stuff it down, and that energy obviously doesn't go anywhere, because energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only be transferred. So you just push it down and it goes to some other part in the body where it becomes trapped. And this is part of what can obscure the window. The window that I'm talking about is just you, your true nature, just you seeing clearly and feeling that inner stillness and peace within. You actually prevent that when you do not allow yourself to feel emotions. So I suggest that you get into the habit of processing your emotions, of grounding yourself, of centering yourself. I'm going to talk in another video about grounding and centering exercises, so keep an eye out for that one, that you can use to center yourself in your experience before you start overthinking. But yeah, removing that barrier is really important. It's also important to let go of this idea you have that happiness is somewhere in the future. People shoot themselves in the foot and they sabotage their own present moment beingness and their own present moment happiness through this belief that happiness cannot be here, it's somewhere else. Now, I hugely believe that you should set goals in life, because the goal itself creates a kind of narrative that nudges you along and motivates you to take action. And when you take action, you become an energetically flowing, moving being. When you're stuck, you're depressed, you're not going anywhere, and this isn't good for your mental health either. But when you overvalue the goal to such a degree that you start convincing yourself that the goal is the holy grail and this present moment is not enough, that's when you start to the goal becomes a mutation and it stops actually serving the original purpose, which is to motivate you to act and to go on a journey that you can actually feel joyful with. So let go of the belief that happiness is somewhere in the future. Happiness is in this perfect relationship, this super hot woman, this amazing car, this amazing house, this amazing set of circumstances. Happiness is a complete new life where you're free from all problems and all this stuff. It's not true, because whenever you achieve something, it's pretty quick that you overcome it and you eventually just becomes your normal state. I'm in my flat right now, my apartment, and I moved in here, and while I remain that I'm really grateful for it, and I wake up every day and I write in my gratitude journal and I say, it's amazing to be in this apartment on my own. It gives me so much freedom, but at the same time, I need to also acknowledge that when I moved in here, this was the most amazing thing ever. It was a novelty. It was the answer to all my problems at the time. But pretty much soon after, within like a month or two, it just became my norm. It just became my baseline state. And that's what happens. Whenever you achieve something, eventually it just becomes your baseline. So don't make the mistake of thinking that anything is going to make you happy. Nothing will make you happy except for going within. Happiness is an internal experience. Now, there's also a fear that if you are actually happy with yourself and you fully accept yourself, then you just sit there and do nothing and just eat pizza and just watch porn or whatever. This is not actually the case. You'll notice pretty quickly that if you actually embrace this style of being, which is just your natural state, it's your connection to your true nature. It's connection to that inner stillness that you really are, the inner peace, the inner happiness, the knowingness of being, that you are complete and whole exactly as you are. You embrace this, and that actually gives you the motivation to share and spread that happiness with the world. And I know this because I'm doing it right now. If hypothetically you were to feel this happiness and this beingness and you just sat there and did nothing, you'd get bored pretty quickly. You'd want to do something else. So that doesn't make any sense either. So do you see how happiness is your true state, it's your natural state of being, but there's just so many things that get in the way. And I only just mentioned a few of them here, but there's tons of them. So just keep an eye out on it for future videos on the channel, and I'll delve into this even more. So hope you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel. Take care.